I'm Councillor Harry Cartmel, Chair of the Committee. I'm obliged to read the following. The meeting is being broadcast live over the internet on the Council's YouTube channel. A recording of the meeting will be available through the Council's website afterwards. There's more information about meeting arrangements on the Council's website, including a privacy statement. I'm being assisted today by officers from planning, legal and IT services, as well as some other council services that you will see personified in the middle circle. Attendees may be joining the meeting from somewhere else. Members are asked to be polite, respectful and patient, and to remember everything said while the microphones are live will be broadcast and recorded. So, with those few words, do we have any apologies for today's meeting, Mrs. McCall? Or indeed, Val?
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies from Councillor George Paul this morning, and also, Chair, just for completeness, we have one of our committee members joining us online. That is Councillor Damien Doran-Timpson. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any declarations of interest, item number 2, from members present? Councillor Boyle.
Thank you. I will declare an interest in the first item on the agenda, as there could be a conceived connection with Mr. Hardy that's presenting for this case. So I'll step out until this is heard and come back in.
Thank you. The order of business is as per our agenda. So that's item 3. And item 4, can we confirm the draft minutes of our previous meeting, please? Okay, we have agreement on that. Thank you. Okay, so our first item today for determination is reference number 0715/FUL 25, and it's the site at Gardeners Hall Farm Limited. Councillor Boyle, did you want to come in at this point?
Yeah, sorry, Chair. Under item 3, discussion of any other things that we want discussed. I have 3, item 8, F and J, and item 9, C.
Okay. So when we come to that part, sorry, I should have...
It's okay.
So we will certainly have a discussion on those, Councillor Boyle. Thank you. Okay, so going back for the items for determination today, as I said, the first item, agenda item number 5, 0715/FUL/25. We have two, an agent and the applicant wishing to speak, Mr. Hardy and Mr. Buchanan. If you could come forward, please. Thanks, gentlemen. Excuse me. Mrs. McCorrison, could you take us through the case, please?
Thank you, Chair. Just a correction on the papers to start with. Under recommendation, the recommendation is to refuse matters specified in conditions. This is actually a full application, so the recommendation is to refuse planning permission. So apologies for that. That's a correction. This application is for engineering operations to infill a 1.89 hectare area of agricultural land owned by Gardeners Hall Farm Limited. The site sits to the south of Blackburn and Blackburn Hall and on the east side of the B792 Blackburn Road. It is proposed to form an access from the north end of the lay-by on the B792 and run a temporary track adjacent to the tree line and a small ditch on the north side of the western field. The track will be used to transport soil to infill the application field. It is envisaged that 1 lorry of infill soils will be tipped each day with 20 to 30 loads per month over a period of 3 to 5 years. The proposal will raise the ground level by approximately 4.5 metres. The applicant advises that this will make the site easier to access with farm machinery and will improve the crop yields of the field. A previous application for the same development was withdrawn as further information had been requested. Members will note from section 5 that there is an objection from the neighbouring farm concerned that there are field drains within the site that will be impacted and could result in flood risk for both farms. At section 6 of the report, members will note that there are objections from 3 consultees as flood risk, road and access and tree and ecology details have not been submitted to allow a full technical assessment of the proposals. In terms of the development plan policies, the proposal has been assessed against 14 policies as outlined in section 7 of the report. The proposals do not conform to any of these policy requirements, ranging from nature and climate mitigation and tree protection to waste management, flood risk and road safety. Significantly, there is minimal justification for the works, particularly over a 3 to 5 year period, and the proposals would be out of keeping with the natural, rural, undulating character of the area. In terms of the overall assessment, it is unclear why this field is difficult for farm equipment when the adjacent fields are all undulating in character and have been farmed for a considerable time. There is a lack of information for the technical assessment and, on balance, the minor benefit from a possible slight increase in crop yields outweigh the detrimental impacts on the rural character, ecology and biodiversity, trees, flood risk and highway safety. It is therefore recommended that full planning permission is refused for the reasons attached. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mrs. McConnison. It's now the turn of the applicant and indeed the agent. So, Mr. Hardy and Mr. Buchanan, you have 5 minutes each.
Good morning, Mr. Convener, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for the opportunity to address you this morning. We're asking that committee consider this application as there are a number of issues in the application and particularly the committee report that we would maybe like you to review and hopefully support our application. Firstly, to clarify, the 4.5 metres of upfill is at its absolute maximum. It tapers to 0. It's not as if we're lifting the whole field up by 4.5 metres. I think that needs to be clarified because it is a cleft that we're infilling. So then the first thing I wanted to bring your attention to was in the report, it refers to an objection by the neighbour. This has never been posted on West Lothian Council's planning portal. We've never seen this up until we got the committee report. We've taken some screenshots to show that that wasn't actually posted on the page for that application. So it's wholly wrong for the report to state that we didn't respond to that objection when we actually didn't know about it. However, in terms of that objection, now that we've seen it, the site levels proposed show that the finished infilled site is still downhill and over 1.5 metres below the neighbouring field belonging to Mr. Taylor. It slopes away from that field towards the Fulshie Burn and to the south, so the neighbouring field won't actually be affected. Any infill would have new field drainage installed, so anything that discharges from Mr. Taylor's field into my client's field would then be discharged from there. Second issue that was raised is flooding in the technical reports. We acknowledge the technical reports have been there and it's our opinion that they're a bit zealous and we've asked for a bit of a common sense approach on it. SEPA flood mapping showed 2 areas of interest in the site. There's surface water flooding through the middle of the site, the area that we want to infill. It's a deep natural depression which collects the water from both sides of the site and directs it towards the burn to the south. The inundation that's shown on the maps occurs at the bottom of that cleft. Whereas the new proposal removes this cleft, allows the slope across the whole field to drain to the burn across a much larger area with a much larger width of slope and eliminates that inundation problem. Also, the report refers to river flooding just out with the site. That bank is quite steep, over 4 metres above the water course. So we are not actually touching the bank at all. There's no infill there. And the river flooding from the burn would actually have to raise about 4 metres to come into the site. we are not adjusting it, so we don't see how that affects anything downstream either. We understand the council's position, but it seems that the default position is to do full FRA, which seems like a sledgehammer to crack a walnut in this case. That is just my opinion. If I can briefly turn to the policy assessment in the report, we acknowledge the importance and necessity of NPF4, but I think a blanket is being applied here and not looking at the individual site circumstances. We're asked about protected habitats when we've deliberately stayed to the middle of the field, avoiding the bank that we discussed earlier and the field margins where the habitat is at its most fragile and its most common. As for tree protection, quite simple to move the access track away from the trees and that field margin to protect those two. The report states that the soil improvements would be very minor and have limited benefit to agricultural environment. I don't believe that planning officers are qualified to make that statement. I'm no expert, but coming from a farming family, having been brought up in one and with most of my extended family still farming, it's quite clear to me that by making that field flatter and easier to work, it makes it more productive and easier to operate the business on. That's, again, my opinion, but that comes from a lifetime of experience. Officers twice refer to the adverse impact on the natural topography. Who sees this area of land? It states in the report that the site is landlocked. It's not visible from any public road because of the existing topography, so how can it have an adverse impact on the wider community when no one can see it? Finally, the report references waste management services, which is wholly erroneous, but Mr Buchanan will talk about that shortly. We ask that committee consider granting this application, even with conditions to look at the technical reports. That's not an issue. The applicant simply wishes to make agricultural improvements, and I repeat, this is not a waste management facility as referred to in the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Hardy.
Good morning, thanks for your time. My name's Daniel Buchanan and I'm here on behalf of Gardeners Hall Farm. I work with my family where we operate several small businesses locally and we've recently chosen to invest in this farm in Blackburn. As part of our compliance with the farm's LFAS requirements, we undertook a detailed soil analysis across the entire holding. This assessment identified a specific area where soil quality improvements would be beneficial to support sustainable agricultural use. Accordingly, the farm submitted an application for this specific area, seeking permission to import a screened, graded and certified soils to enhance the overall land quality. The proposed improvement will support more efficient farming operations and contribute to improved crop productivity. I respectfully wish to draw the committee's attention to a number of factual inaccuracies contained within the officer's report. Furthermore, it appears that the conclusions and recommendation presented have been influenced by assumptions relating to our other business interests. These assumptions have materially affected the assessment and have led to a recommendation that does not reflect the reality of the application before you. Firstly, the report identifies the wrong applicant. It's the first part of the report. The application was submitted by Gardeners Hall Farm Limited, as clearly shown on the application form which was available on the planning portal. The individual named in the report does not appear anywhere in the submitted application. It is important that the correct applicant's details are recorded, as this ensures their proposal is assessed accurately and fairly. Secondly, the report refers on multiple occasions to the site as an existing field that is currently landlocked. This is simply not correct. The farm owns 75 acres of all the surrounding land with access to public roads on both sides of the property. The submitted drawings clearly demonstrate that the site is not landlocked and forms part of our larger land holding under our ownership. This description materially misrepresents the site context and is further evidence of, in our opinion, a predetermined decision. The next matter concerns the terminology used throughout the officer's report. It refers on 13 occasions to the importation of screen-graded and certified soils as a waste, and on 7 occasions describes the proposal as a waste management operation. This characterisation is incorrect. The application makes clear that only soils meeting the SEPA criteria for end of waste status which will be brought onto the site, as material that has achieved this is not legally classified as waste. It's certified to a specific standard. The proposal before you is a straightforward planning application for the importation of screen-graded and certified soils in order to improve soil quality, farming efficiency and crop yields. By repeatedly referring, including at section 9.1 of the report, as a waste management operation, it mischaracterises the nature of what is being proposed. This alone amounts to a material factual inaccuracy which risks misleading members in their consideration of this application. Finally, as Colin mentioned, section 8.9 of the report states that an objection was received from an adjacent landowner regarding the field drains. I wish to clarify that no such objection has appeared at any time on the planning portal. We have not been notified at any stage of any objection, and we cannot reasonably be expected to respond to comments that have not been made available to us or the wider public. Had this information been provided, we would have addressed any concern and provided the information required. In summary, the report before the committee does not provide a sufficiently reliable basis for the committee's determination. It identifies the wrong applicant, materially misrepresents the site context, contains significant factual inaccuracies, and mischaracterises the nature of the proposed development. This negligently also refers to an objection that has never been disclosed. This application is from a farm seeking permission to improve a clearly underperforming, out-of-site area within an existing field to enhance its agricultural productivity. If the committee has any doubts about it, I'm more than happy to answer any questions about our intentions. If the committee is minded to grant permission, I'm fully prepared to commission and submit any technical reports that are necessary to address and resolve any outstanding concerns. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Buchanan. Thank you. Mrs. McCorrison, I'm sure there are a few points there you would like to address.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, first I would like to apologise if the applicant name has been included incorrectly. The case officer must have used your name from the submission rather than the farm name, so I apologise for that. In terms of the objection, again, I'm not party to whether that was sent to you from the case officer. So if that is the case, again, I do apologise. However, I'm satisfied that the details in that are more of a civil matter in terms of the relationship between the two farms and the legal requirements to accept the drainage, and I acknowledge the retention of the slope on the land. However, I think in terms of Mr. Hardy's comments, about expertise and planners not being experts in agricultural and farm requirements. I think similarly we have asked for information so that our own experts can comment on the flood risk which we're concerned about, the ecology and the tree impacts, and also the road safety issues in terms of the in terms of the access into the site. So the initial application was withdrawn, and as I understand, all this information was requested to allow us to make a full assessment, full technical assessment, and we have not been given that information. Again, regarding the NPF4 policies, whilst what you're commenting is that we perhaps are heavy-handed in the application of those policies, that they are national policies that require to be assessed. Any proposal requires to be assessed against that. We have done that due diligence. We have got holding objections from all the consultees that are at committee today. So if members require any more detailed information regarding flooding or access and ecology and tree issues, then our experts are here. I think in terms of the overall principle, we acknowledge that with your expertise, you're advising that there will be improved yields from this field. However, I think our concern is that for potentially up to 5 years that the field will be out of production, and during that time there will be heavy lorries running across the field, which even bringing in the, having looked at the field and the western field at the entrance itself appeared boggy. Even to bring in the material for the track would be quite significant. Plus the material for the infill. And for clarification in terms of planning, waste management, yes, I accept that is a generic term when you're bringing in a material which can include soil. We do acknowledge it's not a waste facility in the more general accepted sense, but in terms of planning policies, we are required to assess it against those policies. That there are SEPA do allow soil improvement with a small layer of soil and imports without license, but at this level, it's likely that you would require the SEPA license for importation, and so it's on that basis that we're assessing it. We're satisfied, Chair, with the recommendations that have been made, particularly given the lack of information. If there's any other questions, I'm happy to take those. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mrs. McCorrison. So it takes us to the part, the determination that is open to questions from members present. So do we have any questions for Mrs. McCorrison, for the applicant and agent, or indeed our officers that are present today? First question I see is from Councillor Damien Doran-Timpson, who's online. Councillor Timpson, please.
Yeah, good morning, thank you. Can I get a bit more detail on the flood risk that the council are stating exists? A bit more specifics on that, and with regards to what the applicants mentioned about that, if we can get a viewpoint from the team regarding that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. McCorrison, one of our officers going to address that one rather than yourself. Fraser, please go ahead.
Thank you for the question. The flood risk highlighted is just going by SEPA's flood maps. To be honest with you, there's a large burn runs to the kind of south of the site, which indicates future river medium likelihood flooding. There's also, as stated by the applicant's agent, there's also surface water flooding right through the middle of the site. Without further information, there's nothing else really I can give you at this moment in time. The flood risk assessment might model the scenario to be better than what SEPA's flood maps are, in which case be better for the applicant, or it might make it worse. It's one of these things. Without the information, we can't really comment much more on it.
Okay, Councillor Damien Doran-Timpson, does that answer your question in any way?
Not particularly, but I understand why we can't get further detail. But I think we'll come back to this later. I'll a couple more questions, but I'll let others come in first. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Clark, please.
Thank you. A few questions, and they're probably not in the correct order, but I'll just do them in the order I have here. Regarding the wildlife habitat, I think two gentlemen stated that, or one of you did, I'm not sure which one, stated that the work would be, I think, in the middle of the field and away from where the wildlife would be. But I wonder if I could ask, would any wildlife, whether it be otters, bats, whatever it might well be in that area, be able to withstand the type of work that would be happening around them?
Yes, thank you, Councillor, for the question. It's similar to flood. We've not had any assessments carried out, as far as we're aware, for ecology. So at this point, we don't know what the effect will be. We do accept that it's likely to be a limited impact on the biodiversity and wildlife in the area. But we do have concerns about there's hedgerows, which are a priority habitat, the foul shield burn, which has been mentioned, and also there is some riparian woodland in the area as well. But without assessment, we can't say what the impact will be on those habitats or any protected species that might be there too.
Thank you for that, Hannah. If I could ask, I don't know which one of the two of you. So I know that there was the talk about it being waste management. You're saying it wouldn't be of that type of waste that we should be concerned about. Can I ask where is the infill material coming from, and what is it?
Hello, thanks for your question. We basically can easily prepare these reports and get them delivered to the committee, but the reason we've not been able to is because we feel that the outcome was predetermined based on the number of errors in the report. So the soil, I've spoken to SEPA and I've got emails back from them to say that once soil's screened and graded and certified, you get it to a certain standard, it's no longer classed as a waste. So we could bring it in from, there's companies that sell soil, there's a company in Glasgow. We do have other businesses, I'm not going to deny that could also produce this standard of soil. It's a bit like in your kitchen worktops or your units, when you open your doors, your worktops are made out of a waste wood product. It's been shredded, it's been treated, and it's been turned into a new product. So it's no longer classed as waste. So we would just be bringing soil and stone up to that standard to improve the field. So there's no waste, there's nothing unusual that shouldn't be in it. And it doesn't meet, speaking to SEPA, it would meet their requirements.
Thank you. And can I ask then, how do we check that? I know we had a similar application for infill, I think, from the Keep Moat development in Stonyburn, and there was quite a lot of discussion about the type of materials that would go in. But how would we check? What I suppose responsibilities does the council have, or would that be SEPA that would be checking on materials?
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Yes, that would generally, this is why we have looked at it against waste management policies. It's likely that it would need to be licensed by SEPA, but again, the lack of information about the details we're unsure, and this type of information was requested almost a year ago on the original application, and notwithstanding, we wouldn't make an in-principled decision if we were satisfied that all the information was there. But yeah, the screening requirements would sit with SEPA in terms of importation.
Thank you. Councillor Stafford, please.
Thanks, Chair. I think my first question is for Mr Buchanan or his agent. You said the priority was to improve the field so that you could improve yields. But I just wondered, why is the timescale so long, like 3 to 5 years of infill, and would that land be out of use for that amount of time?
I'll answer that if that's okay, Councillor Stafford. It was actually, we stretched the timescale to not make the traffic as bad, because we thought that was one of the big issues, particularly along the hedgerow with the access track. That could be condensed, but we felt a longer timescale would lessen the impact on the... So, a longer impact, but of a lesser nature, and we felt that was a better way of doing it. There's no reason why it couldn't be condensed, but that was the reason behind it.
Okay, that's great, thank you. And then I guess probably on that same vein then, it says under Days 1 on page 5 of my report that there's also insufficient details regarding the site access track. Can you give us more details on what that access track would look like, and also what sort of vehicles would be accessing the field?
I'll attempt to answer that. It's looking to be like a temporary unmade road that would be removed. So there would be some like hardcore materials put down, stone put down in order for the road to access it. It would be an 8-wheeler tipper. That was what would be accessing the road. Again, we were looking at it at one a day, so that there was a minimal impact. We're not looking at it was coming out onto the edge of the road at the existing lay-by, where people are accustomed to vehicles joining the traffic on that road. That was the reason we done it that way. We felt rather than come through the farmsteading, which comes from, I can't remember the number of the road, but it's the one that goes down past Redhouse School, which is a much tighter, and it's really not somewhere you want to have HGVs meeting something. So that was the whole principle behind having the access track, was to actually try and keep it off the other road where the main entrance to the farm is.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks. And then again, back to drainage, maybe for our floods team, do we know what the existing field drains look like and where they're positioned? And is it likely that with this, if it is 4.5 metres at the deepest point, is that likely to bury those field drains to that extent and make it really difficult to access?
Thanks, Councillor Stafford. No, I've not got any information on the field drains. It does look, according to SEPA's flood maps, there is a kind of surface water channel going through the middle of the field, and it does look to be the kind of the lowest point of the field. I'd imagine there'll be a field drain through that, and that's why you're seeing the kind of surface water flooding at that point. But I've not got any other details that I could comment on.
I'll just go back to Mr. Hardy then, if that's okay. You said there was plans for new field drainage.
Only from personal experience, by that 4.5 metres where that drain is, actually, Fraser's correct, there must be something comes down through that. That's the lowest part of the field. Mr. Buchanan, I would recommend, my family would do the same thing. You would put new field drains in that at the new level. You would actually bring something right through below the surface at about 1.2 metres down. You would put tile drain through there, or waving coil it's called now. You would actually re-drain that top, because we couldn't really rely on the porosity of the soil to go down that 4 metres. You would drain nearer the surface and run it across, and probably just put a whole new drainage system in at the time. That's my opinion, and that's.
And I'll go back to the floods team. Sorry, if that was conditioned in, is there the opportunity to improve drainage on the site? And could we make a determination if there's a risk that other neighbouring properties look like they're going to be flooded? Can we make that decision without a flood risk assessment?
So, going back to Dorian, Councillor Timpson's question, our supplementary guidance dictates situations where we would ask for flood risk assessments or drainage impact assessments. The size of this site and the flood risk associated to it is the reason that we're asking for a flood risk assessment. The flood risk assessment, as I answered previously, could help benefit the application in the sense that it might actually make the flood risk less. SEPA's flood maps are done at a high level nationally, whereas the flood risk assessment would model the site and any surrounding land to the specific site, using rainfall and different technical things like that. So without the flood risk assessment, it's hard to put an answer on one side, whether it make things worse or make things better. There is a lot of applications that, by putting in different drainage features, suds, different things like that, it does make flood risk better for different scenarios, but without that technical information, I can't actually make that judgment.
Thanks very much. I think that's me.
Thank you. The next person I see is Councillor Tony Boyle. Councillor Boyle, please.
Thanks, Chair. If the documents had been submitted and they'd been requested, as I understand, about a year ago, why haven't they been brought forward?
Hi there. We're obviously taking advice from our architect, and the significant cost for a flood risk assessment could be done, but the whole way through the process, based even this report, it looks like the outcome was predetermined. The wrong applicant, wrong information, mischaracterising the site. That's not even my name on the application. That's my father's name that the planning officer's referring to. I've never met the planning officer. I don't know why his details would be on this application, but I think they're getting confused between multiple businesses, and the recommendation before you in this report is inaccurate.
Go ahead, Councillor Boyle.
I might leave it until a comment.
Okay. Councillor Conn.
Thanks, Chair. I've got a number of questions if you can bear with me. The previous application, why was it withdrawn?
It was withdrawn following consultation with the officer who felt that we needed to revisit items. And that's when we went back and revisited, for instance, not providing the reports that were said before. So we went back and it was going to be determined. So we decided to withdraw and reapply once we had looked at that further. And that's when we had this discussion around the reports that we felt it was predetermined. And that's why we chose to reapply and come in front of the councillors to have a discussion about it. Thank you.
So if I'm understanding, what you're saying is you withdrew it because you believed it was predetermined. And now that's exactly the same position, which your client's now saying that this paper is predetermined.
We actually revisited some of the things like the access, and we looked at drainage, etc. It's not just a like for like. It wasn't a reapplication. We revisited things. The technical reports were not revisited. That's the thing we didn't do. We didn't feel it was predetermined. We were told it was going to be refused. So, as I would advise my clients, it's prudent to withdraw that application. We got the officer told us that she was putting it forward for refusal, so we withdrew the application to go and revisit it, and then we've come back with this new application. Slightly changed, only slightly changed, but without the technical reports, but that's what we've done in this case.
Okay. If the officers are making a determination and if you've advised your client, surely that's fair and proper, that that's what your client should be getting notified for, to make that decision. But there seems to be an accusation being made that it was predetermined, as if officers are against it in principle, full stop, and will put up any barrier. I'm just concerned about the language that's being used and suggesting that officers are misrepresenting the circumstances where it could be a genuine error. I'm just concerned about the language that's being used.
There's quite a lot of genuine errors in the report. It's the wrong applicant. We've got an objection that wasn't made publicly available. We've never had the opportunity to respond to. It's been lumped in with some of our other businesses. It seems to be based on this report. I'm critiquing the report. We had a correction before this meeting even began about the accuracy in this report. So that's what our issues are with.
Okay. If we go to 9.4, where officers have asked for information, surely it would have been in your best interest to provide that information for them to make that assessment. And then that assessment being presented here, what you've said earlier is if you get conditional permission, you're prepared to commission reports. So it's almost you are prepared to go to that expense, but it's on your terms rather than planning terms. Would that be a fair characterisation?
I don't think it's a fair characterisation. It is a characterisation. It's not about being on our client's terms. We engaged with the officer to discuss about the extent of these reports, and we feel that, and I stand by what I said there, that I think in terms of these technical reports, I didn't think they were necessary. The other thing I've got to advise my client of is speculatively spending £12,000 on something at the front end, I think is a bit unfair on him, and that was what I tabled to them, and that was the decision that was taken. That's why we've come back to you today.
Okay.
It's quite an excessive, not excessive, it's quite a significant investment to make speculatively. That's my opinion on it.
Okay, I respect the advice that you've given to your client, so I'm happy with that response. Going to take up the point of access. I did have a concern previously about it being described as landlocked, but you did mention it, that it's actually accessible from two different directions. So I'm happy for that. But that's not my question, Colin. So, and also your point about the nature of the access that would be coming from the east road, and I so accept that. can I just then focus on the current informal lay-by that's there? And I was on the site visit on Monday, and I had concerns about that access, partly because of the speed of the traffic that was coming there. It was, and the type of vehicles, which at that time there was tipper lorries, etc. So I had a feel of the nature of it and the nature of the lay-by being there. But because there was no road information provided by you, I didn't know how that access was going to actually physically take place on that lay-by. Was it using the existing gated access into the field, or was there a separate one? And how would traffic accessing the new track or whatever it was safely? And clearly I would have liked to have asked our officers if any proposals dealt with that.
I actually met and walked the site with the case officer, and we looked at the lay-by, and we actually discussed the fact that the actual field gate is probably too near the middle of the lay-by for the lay-by to be effectively used. So we didn't want to sort of eliminate its use. So we had discussed that because it is our client's field, they could actually divert that access further down. It was never taken further than that because we never had any response, but that was a discussion that took place, that we had the flexibility to move the access to the end of the lay-by, which gave you your maximum visibility display to the north, so that you could actually see before things, because if you're at the other end of the lay-by, vehicles come over the top of the hill quite quickly there. So we were trying to do it that way. The other thing we talked about was whether we'd put traffic management in place. For instance, any vehicle leaving the site would always turn left, so that it would actually join the traffic on, not cross traffic at that point. These are simple traffic management things that could have been discussed. And we had a discussion with the officer on site, or I had a discussion with the officer when we walked the site to see the best way, but we never actually moved that forward at all because it was coming before, other wider issues, the technical reports, etc., seem to sort of make that irrelevant at this point. But that could be...
Go ahead, Councillor Conn.
Chair, can I ask the roads officer regarding the nature of the access from that location?
Okay, thank you, Chair and Councillor Conn. Obviously, we have asked for further information to be provided. We'd expect to see, as part of the further information, suitable visibility display for the speed of the road. So we'd expect to see that. Obviously, that would have an impact on where the access point could be. If the access point was within the lay-by itself, that may be an issue if there's other vehicles parked within that lay-by as well. So, again, without having that information to hand to show where the access is or what visibility display we're looking for, we had to condition a response to say more information needed.
In general terms, would you agree that lay-by is the most appropriate one, given the nature of the access coming from the west road? That it is the best access to the proposed site is from this road. But a point to be agreed.
Yes, again, it'd be a point to be agreed. As I said, within the middle of the lay-by, it wouldn't be difficult to assess just now, because obviously if there's parked vehicles within that lay-by, it should be noted it is a high-speed road, so the visibility display would be quite large in both directions, so that may impact on hedgerows or things like that would have to be removed. But again, until we see the exact position of this and the visibility display, we can't make any further comment just now.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you for that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Conn. I have a question for our legal representative. There have been certain very strong words expressed today by our applicant. I just wonder what your thoughts were on those words that were said.
I've no particular thoughts to, and I suppose the key point for members today is to ensure they have enough information in front of them to determine the application. There's always been talk about a representation that wasn't available to the applicant. I sense they've had an opportunity to respond to that today. In terms of a fairness point of view, they may think differently. That might be a question to put to them, that they've had an opportunity to respond to it. But I suppose Ms McCorson may know better than I whether or not that has been submitted to the applicant or not. We don't know. And we must assume that they haven't seen that in time since the report went live 1 week ago. I don't have any other particular comments from what was made, but as ever, it'll be up for members to assess if what information they have in front of them is adequate to make their decision. Thank you.
Yeah, could I just summarise or could you summarise by saying you feel that today we are in a position to determine, regardless of what the applicant has said, you feel in your legal view we are in a position to determine today?
I think from a legal perspective, the applicant has an opportunity to respond to the representation made today in this forum. I think when you look at the merit of the representation made, it's more in the field of I suppose competing landowner rights rather than a material planning consideration. If there are drainage issues across the site, there could well be servitude or other property rights available to each of the landowners to regulate that. If there was an issue with drainage going forward, it would be a civil claim between the landowners rather than a route back to the planning authority. The more pertinent question for committee, I'd suggest, is to ensure that they have enough information in front of them to ensure that they don't have any concerns from a policy perspective when we look at flooding and biodiversity and transport, which I think are the main issues that have been discussed where further information was requested.
Thank you. Okay, further questions from Councillor Damien Doran-Timpson. Damien, please.
There again, thank you. Question for the applicant. And it leads a little bit on to where you were questioning there, Councillor Cartmel. If we were determined to move this and defer this to a future meeting and request that the information required by the council is submitted, including a flooding plan, would the applicant be willing to do this?
Yes, I think you read the information. My critique, obviously I'm passionate about it because it's a family business, so it's not a criticism of the people involved. I was focusing on the report itself, but yes, we'll be prepared to get the reports that are required to give you the information to make an informed decision.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Do we have any further questions? Don't see anyone wishing to add any further questions, so that takes us on to any comments. Do we have any comments from members present? The person I see is Councillor Tony Boyle.
Thanks, Chair. I feel the applicant has been given the time to bring these reports forward. He's on about the expense of them, but I'm sure, could be wrong, that the expense of the reports will fall into insignificance against the cost of the work he's actually going to undertake. Councillor Timpson, is moving possibly down the take it to another meeting to defer a decision today. I'm opposed. I would be opposed to that on the basis that we have deferred decisions, which have then been gone to the reporter for as not determining that particular decision. So I would be opposed to putting it off to another date.
Thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Clark.
Yeah, I would be interested to know what the timeframes are and if it would still be within time to defer it. I'm certainly not prepared to make a decision today based on the information that we have, or more pertinently, we don't have. But I think I would be prepared to give more time to allow the reports to come in, but I wouldn't be expecting just a flood report. I would be looking for all of the reports that were requested and to look at it again. I think that the applicant and his representative, explained that there was more information available, but we have to make decisions based on the information that we have in front of us and not just on the probablys and the maybes. But if you really believe that this is something that can happen within the rules of planning, then I would be prepared to look at it again. But so long as we had all of the reports in full, I think that the NPF 4 is quite stringent in that it does request this information, and that's for very good reasons. And I think in the past, and we've now, I think as a committee, we've had to deal with situations where we've said, yeah, we'll grant planning, but on condition of X, Y, Z. And then a couple of years down the line, conditions have changed, the rules have changed, and it then becomes very difficult to make that decision. So I think, especially with the likes of flooding, road safety and the ecology, we need to have that information first and foremost. And that's how I feel about this today.
Thank you. Councillor Stafford.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just one point. I think I would agree. I don't feel like we've got all the information to make a decision today, especially where existing surrounding farms could potentially be at flood risk. I think that's a really important point, and we couldn't make a decision without that information. I don't think I would want to waste committee or the applicant's time further, though, because for me it's the balance of justification of this application against the NPF 4 Policy 1 tackling the climate and nature crisis. I think the volume of this work is 30 tipping lorries a month from 3 to 5 years, and I appreciate that could be condensed, but that is what we're talking about in terms of emissions, and I don't see the justification for it here. Most of this land is undulating, and if every farmer chose to do that, I just don't think we could support that level of disruption, especially having to create a new access road as well. So I think I would be supporting Councillor Boyle's position.
Thank you, Councillor Stafford. Councillor Conn.
Thanks, Chair. My initial read of it and of the paper and the site visit, I did have a negative view on the application, in part because the information that was not provided in 9.4 would have actually been helpful, and I would hope that some of the questions I asked would indicate that's why I was asking the questions, was to help. And some of the comments or some of the responses I got and from Mr. Hardy regarding the number of vehicles could be, the period could be condensed, etc. But it comes back to getting a proper road access which deals with some of the safety issues, which clearly, given the volume of unspeedy traffic, I think for me some of the other issues about flooding and ecology and whatever, and whilst important, I think for me the first bit is how do you get access to that site, because if it's not safely accessed or egressed, then everything else for me falls by that definition. If it's not safe to access or egress, then clearly it shouldn't be done. And that's why I think getting more information would actually be helpful, speaking to officers and getting that clarification that some of the issues can be resolved. I did mention in my questions, but one of the issues about the track, for example, to the north and closer to the trees, it's boggy land. So in that sense, again, it's do you remediate that stretch of land as your track, or do you bring the track further south? So for me, I've still got questions that I think need to be clarified and answered before some of the colleagues' questions are really to be addressed. Is this site safe? And on that basis, at the moment, I don't have that clarity. That I would be prepared to support the application on that basis.
Thank you, Councillor Conn. Councillor Doran-Timpson online, please.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, I think as being guessed by previous speakers, I am minded to move to defer this. I would like some guidance as to how long that defer would be, both for practicalities, to give the applicant the full time to get all the information, not just the flooding risk, as I said earlier, but all the information, and including, as Councillor Conn has mentioned there, the transport and access issues that we have. So that's where I am. I'm minded to move it forward. So a bit of guidance as to how long that's likely to take. and so this can be dealt with in a timely manner. The applicant has stated they have had some issues during this process, and so I'm minded to put that into the mix as well, to give them an opportunity to have for application if they're willing to provide all this information, including access, including the flooding risk, and everything else that's in these papers. Yeah, I'm minded to move. We defer this to a further meeting. So, a bit of guidance as to how long that timeline would be sufficient would be useful. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Damien Doran-Timpson. My own comments and observations is it's very rare that we have a paper in front of us that have 14 planning reasons to refuse. 14 sitting in front of us here. So that in itself, I think, is very unusual. The notion that somehow this committee has a predetermined view is just plain wrong. I mean, there are many times that the planners have come up with a recommendation and this committee have not gone along with this recommendation. And today I would have been possibly in a different mindset if in the year or so that you had the chance to provide us with the information and spend, I believe you alluded to the figure of £12,000, spend that money, put that information in front of us, I may have a different view than I have at the moment. But right now, with 14 planning reasons written in front of me here, given by our professionals in the West Lothian Council Planning Department, I am certainly not of a mind to grant. So, with those words, moves to a position. I am moving a position of refusal. The refusal is based on the 14 planning reasons and everything else that have been submitted by our planners here in West Lothian Council. Do I have a seconder?
Yeah.
Councillor Tony Boyle.
Yeah, I would second that position.
Do we have an alternative position? Councillor Damien Doran-Timpson, please.
Thank you, Harry. Yeah, I'm going to move that this is deferred. I'm going to say by one cycle, because I think you're right. There has been a protracted application as it is, and that all information that's required by the council, that's contained within this document, is supplied by the applicant.
Mrs. McCorrison, you wanted to be...
in there, Harry, so.
Thank you, Councillor Damien. Your position is duly noted. Mrs. McCorrison wishes to come in.
Sorry, yes, just to comment on that, that we have been caught out previously by applicants going to non-determination. The period, if we continue for one cycle, will go beyond the 10th of March, which is their end date for appealing non-determination. So my recommendation would be that if you're going, if that is going to be the decision, that you would need something in writing from the applicant to agree to a continuation of the date for determination of the application to at least, if Councillor Timpson, Timpson wishes that to be the next cycle, which is the 18th of March, it should be a few days beyond the 18th of March as a minimum, I would suggest. Thank you.
Councillor Clark.
Yeah, so I was going to ask then, can we ask of the, if I was to support Councillor Doran-Timpson's position, then can we ask the applicant whether or not they would be prepared to get the information to us without declaring that being out of time? Is that something we can ask of them just now?
Mrs. McCorrison?
Obviously, normally we would require that in writing. So it is whether council or committee want to be minded to grant, subject to receiving that in writing would be my recommendation. Obviously, you can take the applicant's word, but it's your decision whether you wish to do that.
Councillor Clark, are you in a position to second Councillor Damien Doran-Timpson?
Yeah, I would, but I've just, Chair, could we put that question to the applicant? Is that something that they would be prepared to do, to put it in writing?
Is that legally appropriate? I don't... Can we have agreement from the agent and applicant that would happen?
Yes, we can agree that we would extend that vary the determination, and we would not appeal on a non-determination grounds. That's not appropriate in this case. On the subject of the cycle, one question, it was actually towards ecology officers. Are there any restrictions within any of the reporting that would we not be able to do based on the current time of year? You know, there's a seasonal issue relating to some reporting. So I just want to clarify that everything we need to do can be done straight away. That's the only question, sorry.
For the initial assessment that we'd be asking for, there's no seasonal constraints on that can be carried out at any time of year. The only thing to be mindful of is that if that initial report does flag up any issues with protected species, then additional surveys might be required at that point, which could then have seasonal constraints.
So we have agreement on that, Mr. Hardy, that would if the position proposed. Thank you. Councillor Doran Timson, you wanted to come back in?
Yeah, no, sorry. I would just say that I agree. I'm moving the position, so I agree that the in writing would be submitted, and obviously given what environmentalists have said there, with regards to any further reports, that we just have to take as may happen. But yeah, I'm satisfied that with that, as long as it's in writing, I move that position.
Okay. So we have two positions, and I will hand over to Val at this point.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, you are correct. And we have the two positions. We have the motion, which is by yourself, Chair, and then we have the amendment, which is by Councillor Damien Doran Timpson. It's the yes button for the motion, no for the amendment, and of course there is always the abstain button. Thank you, Chair. That's all votes cast now. So we have 4 for the motion, 2 for the amendment. Therefore, the motion is carried and planning permission has been refused. Thank you.
Everybody, taking us to our second item for determination today, agenda item number 6, and that is erection of 4 industrial units, totalling 538 square metres and associated infrastructure at 3 Baird Road, Kirkton Campus, reference number 0832/FUL/25. We do have someone, the agent, wishing to speak, Ms. Stone, but for now, Mrs. McCorrison, could you take us through this case, please?
Thank you, Chair. This application is for the erection of 4 small industrial units. The site is a grassed area in an elevated position above the road level within Kirkton Industrial Estate. There are no objections to the development, but an amended plan to show pavement connections, EV charging, a drainage impact assessment, a BAP survey and a site investigation are still required, as detailed by consultees in section 6. These requirements were set out to the applicant in a pre-application response, as was the recommendation to reduce the unit numbers from 4 to 3 on visual amenity impact grounds. These recommendations from the pre-application advice have not been taken on board. The proposals will therefore, as submitted, appear prominent in the street scene and out of keeping with the spatial character of the area, where the industrial units are set well back from the road and within a high-quality landscape setting. The proposals therefore do not meet the design, contaminated land or drainage policy requirements. Trees will be removed as part of the proposals, and if members are minded to grant the application, a BAT survey will be required before any decision can be issued. In view of the detrimental impacts on the visual amenity and the lack of technical details, whilst the principle of industrial units within this employment area is accepted, refusal is recommended as set out in the attached reasons. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mrs. McCorrison. So our speaker today is Sam Stone, AS Associates, the agent. Stone is actually online, so I'm hoping that she will be able to join us and give her 5-minute submission.
Good morning. Thank you.
Stone, welcome to the committee.
Oh, thank you. Good morning, Chair, and thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'm representing Mr. Green, who operates Icon Business Park Lothian Industrial Estate in Livingston. In 2020, Mr Green received consent to convert a vacant industrial building on the site to provide 11 units. Then it has been occupied by a variety of classes of uses of 4, 5 and 6. Building on the success of the business park, he now wishes to provide a further 4 units to allow the demand he has for smaller units on the site. Just as a bit of background to the proposal, Mr Green submitted a pre-application proposal.
Stone, could I just stop you there? There's a little bit of problem with the audio here. I think that some of the members are struggling. I can barely hear you, but I think some of the members are possibly struggling a bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. It says my microphone is working.
Miss Stone, do you have a headset that you could possibly wear that's very echoey? Do you have a set of earphones or something?
I've got earphones on at the moment.
Right. And also it's very bright behind you as well. Is it possible to draw the blind?
Yeah, I can do that. Sorry. Bear with me 1 second.
Mm-hmm.
Does that help at all?
Miss Stone, that does improve the visuals, but we just wondered if you could sit a little bit further back from the microphone, and if you could possibly just slow down a little, it might just help us understand you a little better. It is a little bit broken up, the quality of the sound.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Is that any better?
That's a little better if you just sit a little bit further back from your laptop. Thank you.
Ms Stone, if you could start from the beginning again, please. I think that's the best thing, because we don't want to miss anything.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Just let me know if you can't hear properly. So as I said, sorry, I'm representing Mr Mike Green, who operates Icon Business Park in the Kirkton Campus Industrial Estate in Livingston. In 2020, Mr Green received consent to convert a vacant industrial building on the site to provide 11 units. And since then, it's been occupied by a variety of class uses of 4, 5 and 6. Building on the success of the business park, he now wishes to provide 4 further units to allow for the demand he has for smaller units on the site. Just to double check that, is that okay?
Yes, that's better.
As some background to the proposal, Mr Green submitted a pre-application proposal in summer 2025 for the site, to which the planner advised that she had concerns about the new building being visually prominent from the public roadside elevation. She also advised that enhancement planting may act as screening to the building, but consideration should be given to how to embed the new building into the landscape. In October 2025, the applicant submitted a new planning application where, despite providing details of significant tree and shrub planting along the roadside boundary of the building, planner advised that she would still be objecting to the proposal unless the project reduced the number of units to 3. I'd just like to quickly highlight a few points on the proposal and ask members find if it was a justifiable support for the application. The proposed building will lie alongside the existing building and will be of a similar design, both set on the south side of Simpson Parkway. The nearest of the new units will be set back 20 metres from the road and will be screened by a large area of new landscaping, including mainly native trees and shrubs, providing a visually attractive area along with benefits for biodiversity. While the planting will inevitably take a while to fully establish, the proposed trees and shrubs are fast growing, will largely screen the building from the roadside and allow filtered views. The applicant commissioned a proposed photographic image of the site once the landscape is established to illustrate the point when the site is viewed from the roadside, which I don't think it may not have been included on the council's papers today. Whilst the case officer suggested the removal of 1 unit to make this proposal acceptable to us, we don't feel that this would make a significant difference in terms of visual amenity and would damage the financial viability of the project for the applicant. Members of the committee will be aware that numerous other buildings that are visible from the roadside in the industrial estate, not least the highly prominent building on the opposite side of Simpson Parkway, directly opposite the application site. I'd suggest that seeing the activity within the industrial area is an important part of promotion, marketing, and demonstrating its vitality. The proposed building is the same design and scale as the existing industrial unit, which in itself is visible from the public road, and the proposal is considered to meet the local development plans in terms of design. The use of the building would also meet the relevant local policies and PF4, which seeks to encourage, promote, and facilitate industry uses. The council has not raised any concerns regarding parking provision or road safety, and following the submission of an ecology survey, no concerns with the removal of the small group of trees on the site. An initial bat survey was undertaken, and the applicant is happy. Similarly, the applicant has now completed both the surface water drainage report and also the site investigation. Given the points raised, I'd be grateful if the committee would reconsider the refusal recommendation and look to allow the very modest expansion of small industrial units on the site. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, so that takes us to any questions from members present today. First one I see. Sorry, Mrs. McCorriston, you wish to come back in?
No, thanks, Chair. Fine,
okay.
Thank you.
The first I see is Councillor Clark. You had your light on. No? Was on? All right. Okay. Do we have any questions from any members? Councillor Boyle. Willie Boyle.
Somebody needs to say something. Question for the applicant. If she's still online. The applicant's representative. It mentions on the policies here at NPF 422 flood risk, drainage assessments have not been submitted, such details required. Is she any comment on that, please?
Ms. Stone, go ahead, please. Ms. Stone, did you hear Councillor Boyle's question? We seem to have lost contact. Andrew, is there anything we can be done to restore connection?
Miss Stone, can you hear us from the council chamber? I think that'll be a no. Miss Stone?
No. No. Still position to proceed. Okay.
Is it? I don't suppose we have any contact details for the lady.
I've just dropped her a quick email, Chair, just to see if she's able to hear us. I don't know how closely she's monitoring her work emails.
So could we hold that question for now? I see Councillor Clark wishes to come in. So if we hold that question for now until we try and re-establish connection, we won't lose that question. Obviously, that question is still very relevant. But just for now, Councillor Clark.
So I was going to ask questions of the applicants as well. But however, I do have another one, which is about the visual amenity. And I think probably I could direct this to Wendy. It's obviously, it is an industrial area. And I think the lady did say that there was very prominent buildings all around. Whose visual amenity is this going to be affecting, I suppose, is my question.
Go ahead, Wendy.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Yeah,
A point of order? Well, I think that there is a specific question to Mrs. McCorriston. So, but as far as well, I'm told the legal representative told us we can continue. So, yep. Go ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Yeah, I think it is visual amenity can be quite subjective, but it is just a general spatial character that this particular estate has. And yes, we've used the line of the adjacent industrial unit as as the building line. Whilst I appreciate there isn't a technical building line along here, we've used that as the point that seems appropriate to set the units back, and it means that one of the units, Unit 1, is in front of that line. But yes, if councillors are satisfied that there isn't a general overall visual impact, then that is a matter for them to consider. That there is some landscaping proposed, so it would be perhaps about the quality and type of landscaping that came forward as to whether that could mitigate against the projection of the unit further forward.
Thank you. Andrew, do we have connection restored? Okay. Good. Oh. So it may be a problem with the
Could
other
we possibly check if Councillor Doran Timpson can hear us okay?
Right.
Yep, can hear everything fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Doran Timpson. So again, Miss Stone, can you hear us from the council chamber? If you can you speak? Unfortunately, there's nothing more I can do to assess, Chair. I have dropped Miss Stone an email.
Mr. McGinley's going to give her a telephone call, so
okay.
Just hang on for a minute. Thanks. Continue. Yeah. What's the problem with that?
Can I suggest, Chair, that if we're going to have representation from the public, representatives or otherwise, unlike councillors logging in remotely, we have their contact details. I think it would be expedient to get direct contact details going forward.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, we do. We have their contact details.
I just had a very brief word with legal representation. Do we feel, we being those who are determining in this case, do we feel that we're in a position to, I think I already know the answer to this, but I will ask the question, do we feel we're in a position to determine this case given the technical difficulties that we have at the moment? I'm not really take a vote in it, but I mean, it's just, do we feel that we're in a position to do so? As I say, I think I already know the answer, but I'm leaving it up to others. A yes or a no, it's quite simple. No. Councillor Stafford? No. Councillor Boyle? No. Okay, so we're not in a position to determine this. Legally, where are we? Wendy, where are we? This has never happened in my time on committee that technology's failed us so badly, but
I would agree with that.
That makes sense. Mm-hmm. We can try and come back to this if we can sort the legal issues, if we can sort the IT issues. That'd be agreeable to committee? Thank you. Okay. Right. Put that to the side for now. So. Right. Yeah. Okay, so it takes us to agenda item number 7. As I say, we will come back to that with some hope. Agenda item number 7, which is the change of use of business use from business use class 4 to multifunctional play and education centre at 11A Oakbank Parkway, Livingston. The reference number 0970/FUL/25. Mrs. McCorson, can you take us through this case, please? Oh, sorry, Mrs. Cyphers. Apologies. You just said that.
Thank you, Chair. So yes, item 7 on the agenda relates to an application for a change of use from Class 4 to Class 10 and 11 to provide a multifunctional play and activity centre, which would provide a range of activities and support services for children and families. The site is located on Oakbank Industrial Estate, and it sits to the south of the A71 between Muirston and Mid Calder. We've had no representations on this application, and the policies are summarised in section 7 of your committee report. The key issue in determining this application, as it's a change of use and so it's not a new building, is whether or not this is the right location for this type of use. And the first point to consider is that this is an industrial estate. It is allocated for employment uses, that's classes 4, 5 and 6, which are office, general industrial and storage and distribution. Allowing other uses on employment land may lead to potential conflicts, issues around safety and amenity, and it also reduces the number of premises that are available for class 4, 5 and 6 uses. It's generally not supported by the development plan. Additional guidance around alternative uses on industrial estates was adopted in January 2021, and that states that we will only support them where it can be proven that the site has been vacant and appropriately and actively marketed for 2 years, and that includes a requirement for a signboard on the premises. The current premises have been on the market and advertised since April 2025, which is obviously less than a year, but without a signboard on site. And so it's not really been demonstrated that there's no demand for classes 4, 5 and 6 in these premises. The application is therefore contrary to the policies around employment land in the development plan and the planning guidance about alternative uses on employment land. The second issue that I would like you to consider is that developments such as this, which serve communities, should be located in communities. That allows for shared trips, active and sustainable travel, reduces car dependency, and importantly, it supports a vibrant town or village centre. That goes right to the heart of National Planning Framework 4. The first 2 policies in that are around the climate crisis and around emissions, and a key theme running throughout it is about local living and providing services for communities where they can easily access them. Where a proposal for a use like this is outside of a town or village centre, it needs to be justified why there are no other suitable central locations where the use could be provided. That's sometimes called a sequential assessment or a town centre first assessment. And that approach, again, it supports our town centres and encourages activity in there, encourages vitality and viability of our town centres. Although that information has been asked for, a town centre first assessment, there's been no specific locational justification provided with this application. And so again, on this issue, the application is contrary to the development plan. Whilst there is no doubt that a facility such as this would be of benefit to local communities, the purpose of the planning system is to ensure that development goes in the right location. This site is remote from communities, it's not well connected, it's not well served by public transport, it would be heavily car dependent, and it's adjacent to existing employment uses, which has the potential to give rise to conflicts around traffic, safety and amenity. It is simply not the right location for this proposal. So as set out in the report, the application is contrary to a number of policies in the development plan, and there are no material planning considerations which would outweigh the development plan position. Regrettably, therefore, the application is recommended for refusal for the reasons attached to your report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mrs. Cyphers. So at this point, I can ask Ms. Johnson and Ms. McKinnon, the applicants, to come forward, please. Thank you for joining us today. I'm sure you've already been briefed, but you have 5 minutes each. And of course, after that, there may very well be questions from members present. So 5 minutes each, ladies. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Amy and this is my twin sister, Mairi. We're 2 local mums from West Lothian and the founders of Rainbow Rascals. We appreciate the opportunity to speak today and would like to begin by directly addressing the planning officer's reasons for recommending refusal of our application. The report states that insufficient marketing evidence has been provided and that the continued use of Class 4 has not been ruled out. However, the property has been actively marketed since April 25. Prior to our viewing, it has only received 5 inquiries. 2 other units within the same estate have remained vacant since January 24. This indicates limited demand for its use within this location. The letting agent also confirmed that the building is not well suited in its current class for multiple reasons. While policy refers to a 2-year marketing period, the reality on this estate demonstrates sustained vacancy and reduced demand. Planning policy seeks to protect viable employment use, but prolonged vacancy does not strengthen an industrial estate. Our proposal provides an immediate and viable alternative. It's also been suggested that the proposal does not sufficiently demonstrate access by sustainable transport modes and may increase reliance on car use. Our proposed use would operate on a session basis, creating staggered and manageable traffic flow throughout the day. The closest residential neighbourhood is 4 minutes by car and 11 minutes on foot, which supports the 20-minute neighbourhood concept. There are also bus services operating nearby, linking Whitburn, Blackburn, Livingston, Edinburgh, Bathgate and the number 9 Muirston bus. With stops a 15-minute walk from the building, when researching potential properties, it was important for us to ensure that the building was accessible. So we completed all routes with our children to ensure this. It's also important to recognise practical realities. Families of children with additional support needs often rely on car transport due to mobility equipment or care needs. Sustainability is not solely environmental, it is also social. A service that families can realistically access contributes to social sustainability, which is a core principle of the National Planning Policy. We're simply seeking a change of use within an existing building, and in doing so, we remain fully aligned with policies 1426 and DES 1. The building is already there, and we would be bringing it back into positive, active use that creates jobs and provides a much-needed space for children in West Lothian. The estate is designed to accommodate far more intensive industrial activity, so this managed daytime use will not cause an unacceptable impact or harm to an amenity. In short, this is a sensible, sustainable reuse of an existing building that introduces positive daytime activity to an estate where multiple units currently sit vacant.
Thank you.
Having addressed the planning matters, we would now like to explain what our project represents and why it is important to so many. In West Lothian, over 30% of primary school pupils and 46% of high school pupils are identified with additional support needs, with numbers rising by 10% in the last 5 years. There is no single facility that we have identified inclusive to all children, driving the creation of Rainbow Rascals. We are Scotland's first multifunctional play and education centre, designed with every child in mind. This is a community hub, one for structured learning sessions, music classes and an inclusive play environment. Our aim is to provide support sessions and in turn help families throughout their child's journey, as there are lots of families travelling afar for this or simply going without. This building was chosen because it offers a quieter, less stimulating location rather than a central retail one. It offers adaptable internal space which allows us to create an accessible layout and a structured environment for children who need it. We are not large developers. We are 2 local mums trying to make a difference and support families in our community. We already have a strong community following with over 500 signatures in 3 days backing this application, alongside a supporting letter from our local MP Gregor, who is fully behind our proposed use and agrees the need for a facility like ours. This is an opportunity for us all to work together in creating a new concept where every child feels seen and every parent and carer feels heard. To summarise this application, it reuses a vacant building, responds to limited demand in its class use, and has no public objections. This application isn't a simple change of class use. It's an opportunity to change lives. and transform an empty unit into a place of inclusion, support and belonging. If we truly believe that every child matters, then we must adapt the past to reflect that for our children's future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mrs. Cyphus, you may wish to come back on some of the comments made.
Thank you, Chair. So firstly, turning to the comments that Mary made, I think what the applicants are seeking to do here is valuable, it's admirable, it's an amazing vision that you set out, and I have no doubt that that's a service that would be welcome within communities. And I think we are, as a council, we would be very happy to work together with you, with our property department and with our business team, to help you to deliver that vision and to find appropriate premises. However, I do not feel from a planning point of view that this is an appropriate site for this use. In terms of Amy's comments about there being no demand for the premises, the planning guidance specifically states 2 years. It's approved council policy. That's what we look for in all of these cases. And they've been unable to demonstrate that in relation to this unit. Even if you set that aside and accept that there is limited demand for units on Oakbank Industrial Estate, and we've heard that there are other vacant premises there, it still doesn't get over the hurdle of the town centre first approach and supporting our town centres. Now, employment land is attractive to people looking to start businesses. It's generally cheaper, and you are less limited in terms of parking or the size of buildings. But if we allowed everybody that wanted to open a facility for our communities to do so on employment land, it would decimate our town and village centres, and part of planning policy is to ensure that we support those. And finally, Chair, in respect of the public transport, I accept that there are bus services located nearby. I would agree that it probably is about a 15-minute walk to the bus service on Muirston. However, part of that route takes you through a wood, it takes you through an industrial premises where there are large commercial vehicles operating. There's significant issues on Oakbank Industrial Estate around traffic and parking, and so it's not an active, an attractive public transport route or an attractive walking route that we would want to encourage people to take their children through.
Thank you. Okay, I'm sure there will be some questions generated from members, and the first I see is Councillor Clark.
Thank you. I understand what you're saying about the use of that building, and I think it is important that the town centre approach is taken. However, I think that as a committee, we have to look, as we're always told, we have to look at each of these applications individually. And so I suppose to that end, can I ask the ladies, I'm sorry, I don't know which one's Mary and which one, Amy and Mary, I'll try and remember. Well, maybe either of you. Have you looked at other buildings within sort of the sort of town centrescape, and why would you not go for those? What makes this building? Is it to do with what Mrs. Cyphus was saying about the costs, etc., or is there something else?
We looked at numerous buildings, a mixture of town centres and industrial estates. The reason in the back and behind our business was to do with the fact that we were going to be providing a lot of services that will be to do with additional support needs children and families. We believe through personal experience that town centres are very overwhelming, busy and become dangerous for children. And this is why we opted for industrial estates. We also looked at car parking situations. And where we'd be parked. We actually did the route with our kids when we were researching all the spaces that we could potentially have. And many of them were opening onto busy roads, open roads, cars, doors, having to, depending on how many children. And children who have maybe additional needs will require to get wheelchairs or things out the car. And there was not enough to support that we would be protecting children within the town centres for the type of business that we are projecting to do.
I was interested also, I think it was you, Amy, that said that the class, the building is class 4, but it's not really suited for that. I didn't go on the site visit on Monday, but I did go yesterday to have a look, and I noticed that I think there's band is next door to it already, so there's obviously a different use there. But I couldn't see there being any of these big roller doors or anything where you would expect there to be in an industrial type unit. So was I missing something there, or is this just a regular building that doesn't have the big roller style doors that I did see across the road from it?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Clark, for your question. Yeah, I think, class 4, 5 and 6 uses come in all forms of shapes and sizes. Some of them have large roller doors, some of them don't. I think from your papers, this is 11A, and it has a planning consent for a roller shutter door, but it's never been installed. So, some class 4 also covers light industrial office type space, so not necessarily things that need vehicles coming in and out of the buildings. I appreciate it doesn't have a yard space that you would associate with sort of your heavier class 5 general industrial premises. This part of Oakbank is more of a sort of office park, light industrial, rather than that really heavy industry. The other part of Oakbank on the other side of the park, closer towards the bus stop routes, is a kind of heavier industry. There is some distribution uses and things down there. We currently have an application for open storage at that end of the park as well, so slightly different nature of employment land.
Thank you. Councillor Tony Boyle.
Yeah, thanks. My question is around foot access to it, unless you think that all your potential clients are going to be coming by car, right? You've heard that we don't consider the 10-15 minute walk to the bus stop is along a safe route. I think, if I am correct, that there's a footpath along part of the A71 up to the entrance to the industrial estate, but I don't think there's any footpath from the industrial estate continuing round to Lizzie Bryce roundabout. So how would you address the safety concerns that have been expressed?
So the routes that were travelled, so one of them is from Calder Park Road at the top. You can walk through that and underneath, and that takes you up to the left. It takes you out at, if you know the area well, I'm from Muirston, so I know the different walks you can take. It takes you to the front, which means there's a short pass over right to a walkway, and then that takes you round. We're in the cul-de-sac. It takes you right round. You can walk right the way around there.
Okay. So that's through the housing estate. So you don't envisage anyone trying to use A71 down to Lizzie Bryce roundabout?
Sorry. There will be a mixture of car use. We're not going away from that in terms of the fact for the building, as we've stated, that will be for our children with additional needs, and we have to be real about that and not say that everybody can walk on foot. Obviously I know there is movement with that, with sustainability, but we do know that local mums in our area, my child goes to a school near Muirston, can walk from the building and will be intending to do so. It's from two routes. One is Muirston and the top roads. If you know where the Trailbean Cafe is, you can walk down and through the back, and then there's another one that takes you through a residential area, and there's another one that takes you from the cross at Calder Park Road down and under the pass.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Stafford, please.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for your presentation as well. You said there would be a wide range of uses, and I just wanted to ask, will that be 7 days a week? Will it be in the evenings? And do you expect groups of children to come, maybe using minibuses? I don't know.
Yes, it will be 7 days a week, but it'll only be until 5-6 o'clock. We have been in touch with local facilities and people who are intending on bringing buses with children who maybe can't access by foot. That's also been in conversations as well.
Okay, thanks. And just a further question. I know we've got a number of industrial estates that have got soft plays in them and things. In one in my ward in Bathgate, I think they put up safety barriers in front so that any children coming directly out would be stopped at that point. Have you considered any of those things just in the immediate vicinity of the building, or is that an issue for you?
So we would have these things inside the building. It was also another reason why we chose that unit, because obviously if you've been down there, you'll see there is a dip and there's a mound and it's very secluded at being right in the corner, which is also a very calm environment for children who find visual, sensory, have these issues. So it was really important to have that in that area, in that corner. And the way that the parking is, it is round the corner of the unit. It's not near the main road, which was another reason that we made it. So there will be safety measures put inside the building for these reasons.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Conn.
Thanks, Chair. You mentioned the proximity of bus routes just going to Burn and Edinburgh. For want of a better description, catchment area, do you see parents bringing their children from that geographical area, or is it a more localised service that you're actually providing?
We'd like to think that our services were needed only in West Lothian, but unfortunately nowhere in the entire of Scotland has any services like we are providing. And the people that we have spoke to said that every community should have a place like we're trying to create. So the idea is that we support the communities and families in West Lothian, and then hopefully we can broaden in the future to other surrounding areas as well.
Sorry, I may have missed it in the paper, but how many children will you have as a maximum during a period?
Do you mean a session or a day? Sorry.
Sorry, a session. I mean, what's the maximum that
There'll be a maximum of 50 capacity within the building at any time. Now, the building can actually have more than that. We can have up to 120 within that building. However, that defeats our purpose to make it less overwhelming for children coming.
Okay.
Just wanted to state also on the safety aspect of the building. The building was also looked at because it's a lot of offices and training facilities nearby, obviously, and with the pipe band that are behind us as well, it's all low level, not many vehicles or anything like that moving throughout that area.
Regarding the general environment in an industrial park estate, how do you envisage outdoor space or breakout space if there's a situation? How do you intend to have outdoor space being utilised as part of Children's Day?
There won't be outdoor activity. Bank will be directly into the building. Obviously, there's a music school within it also as well. Our biggest sister is getting involved in the project, so she's a Bachelor of Music, and her friend who's a Bachelor of Education. They're running a big part of the business to make sure every child can have access to education, but that reaches far and beyond, not just music.
Okay, right, thank you. I have one question to the officer. It mentions in the paper with regard to sustainable transport, the nearest bus stop, that in itself doesn't seem to have been well used. So in a sense, if the bus stop in itself is not being well used, is that because employees predominantly do travel by car?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, there's a bus stop immediately to the north on the A71, and I mean, time goes by quicker than I realised, but it doesn't feel that long ago to me that it was put in. But when we looked at it in relation to this application, it's not currently served by any services. There is a sort of track footway along the verge, and there is, as the applicants alluded to, there is a path that you can come into the industrial estate from the top there, that does connect into the wider footpath network in the Calderwood. And also I think the bus services that the applicants are talking to are more on the Muirston side of things, so coming through the woodland there and into the other end of the industrial estate. But yeah, I imagine that the majority of travel to the site is by car to the employment land. There's a significant parking problem on, not specific to this application, but there's a significant parking problem existing on Oakbank Industrial Estate.
Okay. Right, thank you, Chair.
My only question myself would be, I wonder when you were submitting this application, if you were aware of the planning policies that are being, to use a better word, contravened here. I mean, there's 8 planning policies that this goes against. I wonder if you were aware of that when you came forward. I mean, if this had been in the town centre in, say, Mid-Calder, for example, it may have been a very different outcome. Obviously, we haven't determined an outcome yet, but you may not be sitting there right now. So I just wonder if you were aware of planning policies and the obstacles that you are now facing.
I'll be really honest when I speak. We're 2 mums not with planning office or background. We're 2 mums sat here with a dream who've done research, who's looked into this from no knowledge or backing at all on this estate. Our main function and reason for the specific building, when we looked at the national planning framework, obviously, and we looked at the things that were brought to us, was to make it accessible. And the focus point for us was being accessible for the children and for the people that we were trying to bring in. We hoped that there would be some discretion with that and looking at the movement that can be used within the framework with this. But no, we were not aware of what we were going to be into. We've done personal research on this, and I know that there's an option to go previous and to get some guidance on this with the planning officers, but at the time we didn't have the money to do it. I'll be honest with you, I'm a solo parent, and me and Mary just went, let's do this. This is our dream. Let's go for it. How do we make it work for the children of West Lothian? I hope that answers your question, Chair.
It does. It does. Further question from Councillor Stafford.
Just one question came to me. Ms Cyphus said that we would be happy for the council to put support in place from our property team to help you look for suitable premises. Did you have any interaction with the council's property team when you initially had the idea in terms of exploring? I'm aware that we've closed some of our own nurseries, which might be suitable. Is there a minimum floor squareage that you need that you don't think we could find within council properties? And did you work with the council on that?
Didn't work with the council, so we need about 4,500 square feet, and that's so that there's enough space. Too small is not good enough. It's too tight. It's too overwhelming, crowded. As I said, we're not maximising the capacity, so it's not about just getting everybody in. It's space. Space is very important. The structure as well of things that will be getting moved and stuff within the building was really important. When we looked at the other buildings that were available, that were in town centres, the space wasn't adequate for what we were looking for. But we didn't work with the planning officers, so I hope that answers your question.
Thank you. Councillor Boyle. Councillor Willie Boyle.
Thanks, Chair. Not being planning experts, I congratulate you on your presentation. I would like to ask though, I hear what you're saying about putting internal doors in, entry and exit. The particular one my colleagues mentioned in Bathgate, I've used with my grandkids, and we put barriers, we asked them to put barriers immediately as the kids come out the door so that they wouldn't be tempted to run straight through parked cars. It would be tough to stop and around. And it's worked very effectively. And I would ask you if you'd be comfortable with me conditioning that, because you've got 2 doors that they open directly across a footpath to the road, both at the side and at the gable end. When I noticed when I went up on the site visit, how would you feel about that?
We would be absolutely fine with that. I think you're probably talking about the Hive in Bathgate. I do go there a lot with my children, so I know the industrial estate that you are talking about, and I know the barrier you are talking about as well. Obviously with the Hive, it's not accessible for disabled children, especially because of the pathway going up to the front door. So we would need to make sure, because we do have a disabled parking space outside of the building, that it is accessible for children in wheelchairs, because that is obviously very important to us. But we would do everything in our power to make sure it was safe for children who may run on the road and who were physically disabled.
Well, that's very convincing. I'm not going to condition that. but you're taking that on board and you'll look at that. So thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any further questions? Don't see anyone asking a further question, so we move on to comments. Any comments from members present? First light I see on is Councillor Willie Boyle.
Thanks, Chair. 9 policies against you here. Heard policies mentioned twice this morning. The reality is most of these policies repeat the same thing. First 5 are round about the transport issue, and I think you've presented well on that. So I'm quite convinced for what I've heard on that. But for the officers, I have to say that it's a wee bit contradictory that the first 4 are about the issue of increased traffic and footfall, and the 5th one actually talks about the increase in traffic, foot traffic. So there's a wee bit of contradiction there. It also mentions in the West Lothian Development Plan 2018 policy DES 1 that proposed development is not in keeping with the character of the surrounding area. I can't agree with that. The building is there and fits in with the character of the surrounding area. We're talking about the people that's likely to be using this. And are we going to discriminate against the people that this is targeted at, which would be against equalities law? So that does not work for me. LDP policy EMP1, the marketing. What is the marketing period? The company that's renting this is not here to answer that. And I'm quite sure if we heard that there's other vacant units in this area, are none of these places being marketed? Or is it just this place that's not been marketed? That argument just does not stand up for me. And LDP policy TCR2, out with town centre boundaries. We're talking about Livingston. Now, we have a designated town centre boundary, I'm quite sure. But my issue with Livingston is we don't have a town centre. We have a shopping mall. And we've seen West Lothian Council policies develop housing in some of the areas that were previously commercial use round about the town centre area. Now, no, housing is big demand. We're in a housing crisis, but if we keep building houses and don't develop Livingston as a decent town centre, then we can hardly blame other people for looking further afield. So I think we're on a sticky wicket with policy TCR2 on this occasion. I'm minded to grant.
Thank you. Any further comments? Councillor Tony Boyle.
Yeah, having been on the site visit on Monday and seen the layout of where it is on the industrial estate, I know we would be putting a child facility into an industrial estate, but we've also got a Little Gems in Eastmains industrial estate, right? And also in the Hive. The condition that Councillor Boyle is looking to get imposed is the barrier outside the door. Is that right? I think it's not appropriate in this instance because it's a completely different usage from the Hive. I am inclined to approve this.
Thank you, Councillor Boyle. I've got Councillor Clark followed by Councillor Damien Doran-Timpson. Councillor Clark, please.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'm in agreement with both Mr. Boyles. It's a... yeah, they're not twins. Yeah, it sounds like an excellent business, but also an excellent provision for children in West Lothian. I absolutely understand why we have the policy about protecting our employment areas. But I do think, as I said previously, that we are here to maybe look at the grey areas with that. And I think that's what we're doing with this one. I'm not going to list everything like what Willie Boyle did, but I do agree with all that he said. I think regarding the conditioning of the external barrier, I think don't know which one Mary I think said that it could be quite difficult because of you need to make sure it was accessible, and if we do condition that, I would hope that would be taken into. So we're not looking at condition that. Perfect, that's fine. So I think I could only support this, and that's not to say obviously because we don't have precedents in planning as far as we keep being told. It doesn't mean to say that we would be granting anything similar or all the time, but I think that the case here has been presented very well, and it's I think it'd be worthwhile.
Thank you. Councillor Damien Doran-Timson, please.
Thank you, Chair. I commend this application. I did have concerns previously about the access, also about car parking. I know the area well, and the car parking can be a challenge around there at certain times. But Councillor Willie Boyle made some excellent points with regards to the infrastructure and the services that we have across West Lothian, and especially around the Livingston and Greater Livingston area, to call it that. We've got a lot of house building going on. We've got a lot of demand on services, a lot of demand on the areas, but we're not putting anything in. And as much as I understand why the officers have brought in their paper with regards to the non-conformities that we have here, I think in this instance, I'm inclined to use them as guidance as opposed to obedience. So yeah, I likewise will be accepting the appeal and the application on this one, because I think it's something massively needed. I think the service they'll be providing to an area that I know well, with children with additional needs, will be huge, and the benefits of this far outweigh the understandable concerns from planning. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Stafford.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just to say, I also acknowledge the concerns from planning. If this was a regular soft play business, I think I would absolutely agree with the conditions here. But I think this is such a specialised project where there is such a need and a demand, and I think it will be West Lothian wide and beyond. With your reputation, and I think realistically, I think we know that where public transport and walking would be our ideal, it's not accessible for everybody. I visited Pathways, the day centre for disabled adults recently, and they are not near any bus route, but the reality is that they wouldn't really use that overly anyway. I think there was mention about the walking route coming through a forest. As far as I can tell, that's how Livingston was designed. You weren't meant to be walking alongside main routes anyway. That's the way Livingston's designed. And I would presume for ASN children with their parents, that might be quite a relaxed walking route to and from your service. And I think it's in terms of noise issues when you're doing music. I think town centre, you might have issues with noise, whereas this unit wouldn't arise here. So I think the nature, the specialised nature of your project, which does look incredible, is justification on this occasion for not going with the planning conditions that are set out here.
Thank you, Councillor Stafford. Any further comments? I will add my own. I've been very impressed with your presentation today, ladies. You've answered every question fluently, articulately. The nature of your business is slightly different. In fact, marginally different to many of the other, shall we call them, soft play areas within the county. In the ideal world, of course, I would like to see your business in the town centre, whichever town that might be, but I can fully understand your reasoning behind not locating it in the town centre, given the sensory needs and other reasons that you have outlined. So I am, despite the planning reasons that you arguably contravene, I am minded with the rest of the committee to grant here. Any further comments? Okay. Councillor Boyle.
I'll move to grant, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Boyle.
Without conditions.
Reasons, Councillor Boyle, please.
The reasons, certainly. We have... paper.
Just to say that we need, I'm sure you know this, but we need conditions as well, if there are indeed any conditions. But reasons and conditions, Councillor Boyle, you know this, but I'm just keeping myself right here.
Just looking for the paper. National Planning Framework, MPF 4, Policy 1, conform? Yes. In this, given the circumstances it's presented, yes, I would say it does. Policy 2, Climate Mitigation Adaptation. Again, with what's been presented, I would say it does conform, given the circumstances of the potential business. Sustainable Transport, NPF 4 Policy 13, does not offer sustainable transport options. Yes, I think it does, but I think there's an argument there that in what's been presented and the nature of the business, there will be an expectation that most people, because of the nature of their family members, will undoubtedly turn up the car, or if not, use the walking routes that's been mentioned. Routes I'm familiar with, having walked the dog around that area. MPF 4, Policy 14, Design Quality in Place. I think this is an effective place for this business. I don't think that policy would normally come into this as far as being a reason for refusal. NPF 4, Policy 27, Town Centre, Local and Commercial Centres. As I say, there's an argument here that's been presented about the nature of the clientele that will want to frequent this place. It's not ideal for busy city centres or shopping malls, so I can understand that, and we have to take that on board in consideration in NPF 4, Policy 27. West Lothian Local Development Plan 2018, Local DES 1, proposed development is not in keeping with the character of the area. Of course it is. These factories were all built the same. Perfectly fits the structure. LDP Policy EMP1, Safeguarding and Developing Existing Employment Land. You will be employing people, so I don't see where that comes into it. LDP Policy TCR2, Town Centres First Sequential Approach. Does this come in here? Or no, because I don't see a town centre in Livingston, I see a shopping mall. And we need to address that as a council. So, no reasons to refuse, only reasons to grant in this case.
Thank you, Councillor Boyle. Do you have a seconder? The first light I see, well, they went at the same time. I'll go with Councillor Clark. Councillor Clark.
That's fine. Thank you, and I will second that for all the reasons stated by Willie Boyle.
I'm just being told, Councillor Boyle, that are there any conditions? Because they need, if there are,
no conditions.
No conditions.
And I wish you every success.
Chair, in normal circumstances, we would delegate them to the Development Management Manager, and I think that would be appropriate to do that on this occasion.
Happy to do so. Yep. Is there a contrary position? No contrary position? Val, please.
So yes, thank you, Chair. So planning permission has been granted this morning, and obviously there will be conditions that will apply to that, and the Development Manager will be in touch with regards to that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies.
Chair, with respect to the previous application which had commenced, I'm still being unable to get a hold of Miss Stone. She has subsequently dropped off the meeting. I have emailed her a couple of times since she moved on, unfortunately to no effect.
Okay. So, legal advice, planning advice, I'm guessing we're just going to have to abandon ship.
think it's really for members to determine whether, as our legal advisor said, that if you feel there's sufficient information before you to make an informed decision, then I would have thought you could, or if the questions that you were putting to the applicant or agent were critical to your decision-making process, then we would continue to the next meeting. But if you feel there is enough information in the papers, then I think it's acceptable to proceed.
Councillor Boyle.
Thank you, Chair. My understanding and my fairly long experience in being involved in planning, I am not an expert in everything, as some people around the chamber will have noticed. And I'm certainly not a legal expert on planning, but my understanding is that, and what I've always expressed to people that speak to me for advice, people presenting to the committee have a discretionary 5 minutes at the discretion of the chair. And we have been very, very successful as West Lothian Council, even before I was elected, in trying to give everybody their right to be heard in the 5 minutes. And that's to be commended. But given the circumstances, I think it may be appropriate to use your discretion.
So do you wish to continue or do you wish to suspend?
Well, your discretion is that they have that 5 minutes or not. They've had the 5 minutes to present. So it's the discretion of the chair that comes in here.
Okay. I'm interested to hear everybody's opinion. I have my own opinion, but it's a democracy here. So, Councillor Clark.
I would like to have asked some questions, but I actually do think that I probably, having heard the presentation, read the papers, I probably am in a position to make a decision just now. If that is helpful.
Any other contrary views or supportive views? Or
with Councillor Clark, been on the site visit, and as Councillor Boyle mentioned, the 5 minutes that the applicant actually had, I'm not quite sure of what discretion you're actually being asked by Councillor Boyle to make. With respect, I'm not quite sure of your thought processes that you've just asked about the discretion of the chair because the applicants had 5 minutes, but I'm not quite sure what that discretion is. Right, okay, right. Right. No, that's fine. It clarifies what it was. It was like you stopped in mid-sentence, so I understand what you're saying now. Thanks.
So I've listened to what everyone has said. I have information in front of me here. It sounds like there is a consensus of opinion here. We did hear the presentation. We did hear what the applicant had to say. So on that basis, I'm ruling that we hear the case just now. Thank you. So we can't ask any questions, obviously, of the applicant because she's not present, but we can ask any further questions of the officers present or indeed Mrs McCorrison. So if there's any further questions. Councillor Clark.
So I think in the presentation, the lady said that there had been surveys had been completed, they just hadn't been submitted. Or have they been submitted and have you seen them, but they're just not included in our packs? I think that was to do with I can't find my notes now. I think it was the surface water or such the like. I really can't find it now, but I think she did make reference to surveys being completed.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Yes, she indicated that they have done the work on the site investigation and the drainage assessment. And if members were minded to grant, then certainly the drainage assessment could be conditioned on any application. I think I would like to see the phase 1 desktop survey before any decision was issued in case there were any issues there. Though again, given the nature of the site, that it is industrial, that's not of the sensitivity of a residential development. So I think if members were minded to grant, we could that could be subject to us receiving and assessing those reports. But my only query would be regarding the BAT survey, which I think the agent did say that they'd done a preliminary BAT survey, but I'm not sure if we've seen that. I don't know if you know whether we've seen that.
Yeah, thank you. There was a ground level assessment done when they did the tree survey, which highlighted a number of potential roost features. Two of those roost features were described as moderate, which means that they do need to do additional surveys that cannot be conditioned. They need to be done before decisions made on this application.
So if members were minded to grant, it would have to be only a minded to grant, subject to the survey work, certainly for the BAT survey being submitted and assessed, and any further recommendations being carried out, and then the two other SI and drainage assessment being submitted and assessed as well. So the recommendation, if you were looking to grant, would be only to be minded to grant at this stage, and the decision not to be issued until such time, and that could be delegated to officers, but not until that information was submitted, fully assessed and agreed.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Boyle, Willie Boyle.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Wendy. Just on that, the last policy mentioned here, West Lothian Local Development Plan 2018, AMG 6, vacant, derelict and contaminated land. Where a developer site may be contaminated, the developer will take requirements to undertake a site investigation. I'm questioning the maybe. Some of our industrial areas have been heavily industrialised and they're older established industrial estates. Tipton was part of the LDC and was a fairly new site on a green belt area at the back in the day. There hasn't necessarily been many heavier industry type occupations within this industrial estate. Given that, in my own mind, I would think it's less of a risk than say, I don't know Slighton, Broxburn, but Broxburn industrial estate's more established, if you like. So, given that it's a maybe contaminated site, could we get away with conditioning that as well? That study should be minded to grant.
Yes, I think you could, given the nature of the site. I think in terms of contamination, it can sometimes be, this looks like it might have been land raised, perhaps infill brought in for this site. So it can be lots of different reasons that there may be contamination. But I think, given that we as a council require under legislation for them to submit the BAT survey, then I would recommend that they submit. They've advised that they've done a site investigation, or at least a phase 1, and the drainage assessment. I would advise that we ask them to submit all of that. But yes, if there were any conditions coming out of that information, other than coming out of the BAT survey, then those could be subsequently conditioned. Yeah.
Thank you. I know when I visited the site, it just didn't strike me as being heavily industrialised. So thank you.
Any further questions? Councillor Conn.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Wendy, it's regarding 8.2, where it's about visual amenity. And clearly part of that is because of the site is elevated. But when you look across the road, the building is being used for self-storage, the apex of that building roughly is the same height from that visual thing without any measurements. Although I would question the signage on the building as far as the impact on the streetscape as such. But could we ask for some sort of screening to soften the building on the hillside in that respect, if we were minded towards it, given it is that elevated site, and offset some of the open space which is there by some screening? But I was just particularly taken away by height of that building across the road was about the same level as the proposed site. But I also think, is the site not to be cut down a bit? They're not a cut into the...
Thank you, Councillor Conn. Yes, the sections with the papers do show that the site is to be put into a cut and fill arrangement, and they are showing landscaping on the road frontage. I think if members were satisfied that they were that it was acceptable to bring the units as close to the road as proposed, and didn't agree with the officer recommendation to set the units back, then I think we would need to condition a landscape plan that gave shrub and tree planting that was sufficient to help mitigate any visual impact. So that would be a condition should members be minded to grant.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Wendy.
Thank you. Wendy, just in terms of the trees, I mean, it's a small number of trees, half a dozen, 10, I mean, a small number of trees. And those trees are the deciduous trees, or the beech trees, sycamore trees?
We do have our arborist here who may have looked at the site in a bit more detail. Yeah, any tree losses is always a concern and not something that we would generally support. But I think in this case there may be adequate mitigation. But I'm happy for Wayne, our arborist, to comment on that.
Thank you. Interested to hear.
Afternoon, Chair. Yes, so obviously on the PA and of the OB report, most of there's obviously several ash trees that are coming out that have got ash dieback, and the rest of them are mainly sycamores, so they're all fairly not insignificant, but on the class of the 5837 survey, they come out as U's or C's, which are trees that don't have a lot of amenity value or significant lifespan left. So that's obviously the trees that they've chosen to take out. So I think it's about 10 trees that are going to be removed that would be classed as Class C, and obviously they're looking to put back about 30 trees according to the plan. So I would say that's a 3-to-1 compensation, but actually their landscape plan shows 40 trees plus hazel and holly, which you could class as a tree species well more than a shrub, so you could be looking at 100 trees. I'm not sure where they're all going to go though, because it's quite a small space at the front if you're trying to squeeze in that many trees into the landscaped area on the plan.
Okay, thank you. Thanks. Any further questions? I don't see anyone asking any further questions, so that takes us to comments. Open now to comments. First I see is Councillor Pauline Clark.
It's a shame that we didn't have the lady here to answer the questions, but I think despite that, I would be minded to grant under the minded to grant scenario. when I read the papers, I was kind of expecting something really quite awful to be that was getting proposed, but actually, when I was there on site again, I went yesterday by myself, and I was quite surprised that I thought it was actually an ideal place to put more of these units. It's what the area is designated for. It's a proper use of the land. So, and I don't think visually it's, especially with the landscaping such like, I don't think it's going to make any difference to that area. I don't think anybody's going to be particularly impacted by it. So, I certainly would be supporting this.
Thank you. Councillor Willie Boyle.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I'd be minded to grant as well. I welcome the diversity of different sizes, units available for that diversity, and especially the smaller startup units for local businesses. I think there's a danger that we don't have enough small units at times for potential local businesses across West Lothian. So I welcome this. I welcome the diversity. We've got some major employers in there, and it's a good mix. It works well, I think. So yes, be minded to grant.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Subject to conditions.
No further comments. So we are in a position to determine. Councillor Boyle, you had a position. Please, if you like to put that forward, or Councillor Clark.
Yep, quite happy to support this. And I think going through these, we'd be obviously minded and to grant, subject to all the reports being submitted. And I think that would be in relation to the desktop study, so NPF4 Policy 9, we would be expecting that. Design quality place, although it's elevated, I don't think it would be, it's not out of context or anything like that. I think it's actually a fine place to put these buildings. The flood risk and water management, they've said that they have already completed that, but obviously we would only be granting this subject to that being acceptable. Again, NPF 4 Policy 26, it's partially in terms of location and use, I would say it is entirely. West Lothian Development Plan 2018 design principles, again, I think it's fine in that area and it's not visually out of context or such the like. Again, going down to EMP1, safeguarding and developing existing employment land. I would assume that this would be absolutely fine in this area and that we will be employing people. Not we, they will be. Again, it's in a fine area. Going on to, I think, the sustainable drainage, that's part of the drainage plan. We'd be expecting to see that and would only be it would only get permission should that be acceptable. And the same again with EMG6. Hope that's fine.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. As far as the conditions, you're delegating that to planning officers, I take it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? This time, the first hand I saw this time was Councillor Boyle, Councillor Tony Boyle.
I'm quite happy to second it and agree fully with and through the policies that Councillor Clark has outlined.
Do we have a contrary position? Councillor Conn.
Just clarification from Councillor Clark, because maybe I missed it, Pauline, so apologies, about landscaping to reduce the impact on the from the road opposite. And I think that falls in with if there's any replacement trees, so it's just a compensatory landscaping scheme.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of just took that as read that was part of the conditions that we were expecting. So it would be the bat survey, the landscaping, the previous industrial uses, the check done on that, and I think there was one more and I can't. Oh, the drainage. Yeah, thank you.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, no contrary position? Al.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So just to confirm, the decision is to minded to grant planning permission, and it would be subject to a number of surveys, including the Phase 1 site investigation, the drainage survey, and the BAT survey, and a landscaping plan. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Clark, last point.
And I take it that includes delegating everything back to planning, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Boyle, you had, Councillor Tory Boyle, you had a couple of issues to raise that you mentioned at the start of the meeting.
You can have updates on item 8, F and J, and item 9C.
I guess Mrs. McCorrison can answer these questions. Or Mrs. Cyphers, yep.
They're away.
Thank you, Chair. I can actually respond on the questions in relation to 8F and 9C, which is the same appeal. So in 8, we're notifying you of an appeal that was submitted, and in 9, we're notifying you that appeal was not taken up by the DPA because they have no remit to deal with it. So these were both items in relation to 98 and 99 Oldwood Place in Livingston, applications that the Council had declined to determine, which we have a right to do so on repeat applications. So we took the view that we would decline to determine that application. The agent challenged that by trying to make an appeal against non-determination, and the Directorate of Planning and Environmental Appeals said that there was no recourse to do that, and they had no remit to consider the application any further.
Okay, thank you.
Did you have a further question, Councillor Boyle?
I can respond on the item J, 8J. It's an enforcement appeal. The land had been enclosed, what we consider to be open space. And it came into us an enforcement complaint, as you can see, the ENF 018123. So we've had it almost 3 years. So we've been negotiating with the parties involved for some time, and we understood they were either going to submit a planning application or they were going to take down part of the enclosure to open it back up. That didn't happen, and the applicant, despite our ongoing negotiations, then employed an agent to submit an appeal. So we have now, that appeal is with the DPEA, and we have submitted our statement in terms of that case, and we are waiting for the outcome from the DPEA.
Okay, thank you.
Will they answer your questions, Councillor Boyle?
Yes, they have. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, that closes our meeting for today. Thanks for your attendance. We've gone half an hour over ideally what we wanted to do, but nevertheless, thanks very much for coming along, and safe journey on.